everybody, and welcome to another ASMR video here on the channel. In tonight's video, I've got some more facts for you. You guys have always really enjoyed the facts about different countries, so we've got that today. But we're going to be kind of structuring it in a kind of a slightly different way. Essentially, I've got 10 categories, each consisting of 10 facts, 10 different categories with 10 different facts about 10 different countries. So there will obviously be some countries that are mentioned. Is your country mentioned? Well, you're going to have to wait and see to find out. But as always, I hope you find this video informative, entertaining, relaxing, all of the above. And let's get started with our first theme. So tonight we're going to kick things off with sports. Sports is our first theme, our first category. Fact number 1, and country number 1 is Brazil. On the beaches of Rio, people play foot volley, a sport invented there that uses beach volleyball rules, but you can only touch the ball with your feet, chest, or head. New Zealand now. The All Blacks' famous haka before rugby matches is actually one of several hakas the team has used over the years, including one specially written just for them by Maori elders. In India, in traditional kabaddi, the attacking player has to raid the opponent's half while holding a single breath and loudly chanting "Kabaddi, Kabaddi" the entire time to prove they're not inhaling. In Canada, informal shinny hockey in Canada is often played on frozen ponds, with piles of jackets as goalposts and no fixed teams. People just swap sides mid-game to keep it balanced. Moving over to Mongolia now. Mongolia. At the Nardam Festival, jockeys in the long-distance horse races are often children as young as 5 and 6, riding bareback across the steppe for up to 30 kilometers. Iceland still practices glima, a Viking-era form of wrestling, where fighters wear special belts and win by making their opponent touch the ground with anything but their feet. Into Africa now with Senegal. The country's biggest sport isn't football, but lam, which is Senegalese wrestling, where arena-filling champions enter covered in magical symbols and sand, flanked by drummers and praise singers. Number 8 is Japan. In professional sumo, wrestlers may spend half an hour circling, squatting and throwing salt to purify the ring, then finish the actual bout in just a few explosive seconds. Despite not having any natural snow, Jamaica fields bobsled teams at the Winter Olympics. The first team in 1988 inspired the movie Cool Runnings and turned into a cult sporting legend. And finally, for this category, Switzerland. A traditional Swiss sport called Hornessen, or Nusen maybe, involves whacking a small buck called the hornet, so it screams through the air while players in the field try to stop it with giant wooden boards. Okay, moving on to history for category number 2. We begin with Ethiopia. Ethiopia. Ethiopia uses its own calendar. That's about 7 or 8 years behind the Gregorian one. Ethiopians celebrated the year 2000 in September 2007 by Western dates. Over to Poland now. In the 1930s, Polish mathematicians secretly cracked early versions of the German Enigma code and shared their methods with the French and British, giving the Allies a huge head start in World War II code breaking. Mexico now. The huge pyramid city of Teotihuacan wasn't built by the Aztecs. When they found its ruins centuries later, they named it the place where the gods were born. Vietnam's national heroines, the Trung sisters, led a rebellion against Chinese rule in the 1st century CE, and according to legend, charged into battle on war elephants. Fact number 15 is Finland. In the 1939-40 Winter War, lightly equipped Finnish soldiers on skis used the forests and snow to outmaneuver Soviet forces, giving rise to the term Modi tactics for cutting enemy units into isolated pockets. Country number 16 is Greece. Ancient Athenians could vote once a year to exile a powerful citizen for 10 years by scratching a name onto a broken piece of pottery called an ostracon, the origin of the word ostracize. That's cool. Next up is Iran. Iran, the ancient Persian Empire, built a relay-based postal system which, with stations a day's ride apart. The Greek historian Herodotus admired the courier's speed, inspiring the later motto, neither snow nor rain, nor heat nor gloom of night. Haiti emerged from a successful slave revolt in 1804 as the first independent black republic, but France later forced it to pay a massive independence debt that weighed on the country's finances for more than a century. Our penultimate one for this section is Cambodia. The Angkor Wat, now a Buddhist temple complex, was originally dedicated to the Hindu god Vishnu and aligned so that on the equinox the sun rises directly over its central tower. And finally we have Portugal. The devastating 1755 Lisbon earthquake and tsunami shook European thinking so badly that philosophers like Voltaire used it to question ideas about divine justice and optimism. Our third category is geography. Nepal's flag is the world's only national flag that isn't rectangular. It's made of 2 stacked triangles thought to represent the Himalayas and the country's 2 major religions. Roughly a third of the Netherlands lies at or below sea level. Some areas are kept dry by huge pumps. If they stopped working, parts of the country would slowly turn back into sea and marshland. Around 80 to 90% of Madagascar's plant and animal species exist nowhere else on Earth, including lemurs, which in the wild are naturally found only there. Chile stretches so far north to south that it contains almost every climate type possible. Driest deserts, Mediterranean valleys, rainy temperate forests and icy Patagonian fjords. Kazakhstan is the world's largest landlocked country. Indonesia sprawls over more than 17,000 islands, but a surprisingly large share of its people live on just one, Java, one of the most densely populated islands on Earth. If you traced every twist of Norway's fjord-carved coastline and islands, its total length would wrap around the planet nearly twice. Over to Egypt now. About 95% of Egyptians live squeezed along the Nile and its delta. The rest of the country is mostly desert, making it look like a green ribbon in satellite photos. Bolivia's Salar de Uyuni is a gigantic dried salt lake. After a thin rain, it turns into a natural mirror so huge that satellites use it to calibrate their altitude measurements. And finally, for geography, we have Bangladesh. Bangladesh sits on the world's largest river delta, where the Ganges and Brahmaputra meet the sea, making it incredibly fertile and also highly vulnerable to floods and cyclones. Okay, country facts 31 through 40 is going to be all about science. We begin with the United States. In the New Mexico desert, the Very Large Array radio telescopes dishes listen to distant galaxies. Their eerie appearance made them a filming location for the movie Contact. United Kingdom, Jodrell Bank Observatory in England helped track early space probes and even listened in on the Soviet Luna 2 mission when it became the first human-made object to hit the moon. Germany, aspirin, one of the world's most famous painkillers, was first synthesized at Bayer's laboratories in Germany in 1897 from a compound found in Willow Park. Got France now. The metric system was born in revolutionary France, where the meter was originally defined as 1/10,000th of the distance from the North Pole to the equator along the Paris meridian. Russia's Lake Baikal is not only the deepest lake in the world, but also holds roughly a fifth of all of the unfrozen fresh surface water on the planet in a single body. Jumping over to China now, in the 2nd century CE, Zhang Heng built an early earthquake detector, a bronze vessel with dragon heads that dropped metal balls into toads' mouths to show from which direction a quake shock had arrived. Israel has so many tech startups that it's nicknamed the Startup Nation, and researchers there were behind key developments that led to USB flash drives and modern computer chips. South Korea is so digitally wired that you can file taxes, register a business, and even vote in some internal party elections completely online with a national ID card. Got Czechia. Czech chemist Otto Wichtel invented soft contact lenses using a homemade apparatus cobbled from a children's building kit, a gramophone motor and bicycle dynamo wiring. And finally for this section, Australia. Scientists at Australia's National Research Agency, CSIRO, developed radio frequency technologies that became crucial to Wi-Fi, leading to major patient royalties from around Weimar, born in Vienna, co-invented a frequency-hopping radio system during World War II to stop torpedoes being jammed, technology that helped inspire modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Entrepreneur Mark Shuttleworth from South Africa became the first African in space in 2002, paying his way as a space tourist to spend about a week aboard the International Space Station. Argentina now. Football legend Lionel Messi was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency as a child. FC Barcelona agreed to help pay for his treatment when they signed him aged 13. Country 44 is Italy. Centuries before airplanes, Leonardo da Vinci sketched designs for flying machines, parachutes, and even a proto-helicopter based on the way seeds spiral through the air. Nigerian playwright and poet Wole Soyinka became the first African to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986. Sweden now. Alfred Nobel, who made his fortune inventing dynamite and other explosives, left most of his wealth in a will to fund the Nobel Prizes after reading a premature obituary that described him only as a merchant of death. Cuban national hero Jose Marti was such a prolific writer that excerpts of his poetry ended up as lyrics in the globally famous song Guantanamera. Thailand's late king Bhumibol Adulyadej was an avid engineer and musician. He held patents for rain-making technique and used to jam on the saxophone with visiting jazz greats. Penultimate country here is Iraq. The word algorithm comes from the Latinized name of the 9th century Baghdad mathematician Al-Khwarizmi, whose works helped spread Hindu, Arabic, numerals and algebra to Europe. And country number 50 of the video is Kenya. Kenyan runner Eliud Kipchoge became the first person to complete a marathon in under 2 hours, in a specially placed event in Vienna, so fast that it averaged about 2 minutes 50 per kilometre. That's mental. That fact kind of leads us nicely onto our next topic, which is world records and extremes. So country 51 is Luxembourg. You can drive across Luxembourg east to west in roughly an hour, yet it consistently ranks among the world's richest countries by income per person. I'm not sure what the first part of that fact has to do with the other. In Qatar, around 9 out of 10 people living in Qatar are foreign nationals, giving it one of the highest proportions of non-citizens of any country on earth. Singapore's Changi Airport houses a 40-metre indoor waterfall called the Rain Vortex, often cited as the tallest indoor waterfall in the world. Democratic Republic of the Congo now. The Congo River is believed to be the world's deepest river, plunging to more than 200 metres in some places, deep enough to submerge a skyscraper. Saudi Arabia contains a huge portion of the empty quarter, often described as the largest continuous sand desert on the planet. In 1866, Liechtenstein reportedly sent an 80-man army to guard a mountain pass and got 81 back. The soldiers befriended a local and brought him home, and the country later decided to abolish its army altogether. Vatican City is the world's smallest internationally recognized state, but it has its own euro coins, ATMs with Latin instructions, and a railway line barely more than a kilometre long. Monaco is so densely populated that a walk of just a few kilometres can take you across most of the country. High-rise apartment blocks function almost like vertical neighbourhoods. San Marino claims to be one of the world's oldest surviving republics, tracing its founding back to a stone-cutter monk in the year 301 CE. And country number 60 now, Andorra, has two heads of state, the President of France and the Bishop of Urgell in Spain, serve jointly as its co-princes, a medieval arrangement that somehow survived into the 21st century. Facts 61 through 70 are going to be all about language. Now you've got Papua New Guinea. With a population of under 10 million, Papua New Guinea is home to over 800 distinct languages, more than any other country. Belgium has 3 official languages, Dutch, French and German, and even its road signs flip languages when you cross from one region to another. In Serbia, Serbian is one of the few European languages officially written in 2 alphabets. Both Latin and Cyrillic are used, and you'll often see shop signs mixing them. Peru not only recognises Spanish and Quechua, but also Aymara as official. In some Amazon regions, local indigenous languages have limited official status too, so you can see government signs in them. In Tanzania, Swahili, promoted after independence, acts as a unifying lingua franca among more than 100 ethnic groups, and is used in parliament, schools, and pop music. Ukrainian includes the letter, I'm not too sure how I'm gonna convey that, but it's kind of like an R with a little flick on the end. It's pronounced like a hard G, which doesn't exist in Russia. For a while it was even removed from the alphabet under Soviet rule, and then later restored. Over to Ireland now. In some Gaeltacht areas, that's definitely not how you pronounce that, areas of Ireland, where Irish is the community language, road signs are only in Irish, no English allowed on the signposts. Sri Lanka has 2 national languages, Sinhala and Tamil, plus English as a link language, making trilingual public announcements a normal part of everyday life. Morocco now. Everyday Moroccan Arabic freely mixes Arabic with Amharic words, plus French and Spanish, so a single sentence might hop between all 4. And finally, Laos, written Lao, like Thai, traditionally doesn't use spaces between words, only between phrases, so reading it fluently is partly about learning where one word ends and the next begins. Okay, our next topic is myths and legends, and we're kicking off with Bulgaria. In some Bulgarian villages, Nestinari dancers perform a centuries-old ritual where they walk barefoot on hot embers while holding icons of saints, blending Christian and older pagan beliefs. The Hill of Crosses in Lithuania is covered with well over 100,000 crosses, crucifixes and carvings left by pilgrims, even though occupying forces repeatedly tried to bulldoze them in the 20th century. Hawaiian folklore features the bombero, a shaggy forest goblin said to sneak into houses, braid horses' manes, and cause pregnancies if you don't leave him offerings of rum and cigars. Over to Scotland now. The modern image of the Loch Ness Monster took off after a 1930s newspaper published a blurry photo. Before that, Highland law already had plenty of shape-shifting water spirits called kelpies. The Dracula legend is loosely linked to Romania's 15th century prince Vlad Tepes the Impaler, whose brutal reputation was later mixed with local vampire myths and Gothic fiction. Number 76 is Belize. Belizean folklore warns of the Ixtabe, a beautiful woman with long hair who lures drunk or unfaithful men off paths into the forest, where they vanish or go mad. In Mali, the Epic of Sundiata, partly history and partly legend, tells how a disabled boy became the founder of the Mali Empire with the help of hunters, spirits, and a buffalo woman. In the Philippines, many rural areas still tell stories of the aswang, a shape-shifting creature that can fly, detach its torso, or disguise itself as a dog or pig to stalk humans at night. Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey is traditionally associated with the resting place of Noah's Ark, and various expeditions have claimed, without proof, to have found traces of it on the mountain. And finally, we have Albania. Albanian folklore centers on the concept of Besa, a sacred word of honor. Epic tales describe people keeping dangerous promises to guests or strangers, even at great personal risk. Right, our penultimate section is food and drink. Food and drink. Starting with Spain. In the town of Buñol, thousands of people gather each year for La Tomatina, a massive food fight where truck drivers deliver tons of overripe tomatoes purely to be thrown at strangers. Lebanon and neighbouring countries have battled for years over who makes the world's biggest hummus, trading Guinness World Records by preparing industrial-sized bowls of chickpea dip. Bubble tea, or boba, was invented in Taiwan in the 1980s, reportedly when a bored employee dumped her tapioca dessert into iced tea as a prank. In Georgia, Georgians have been fermenting wine in giant clay vessels called kvevery, buried underground for thousands of years. This method is so distinctive, it's listed by UNESCO as cultural heritage. In Malaysia, you can eat nasi lemak, rice cooked in coconut milk with spicy sambal and toppings, as breakfast, lunch, midnight snack are all free. Some 24-hour mamak stalls never stop serving it. In Denmark, Danes are obsessed with licorice, especially salty salmiak licorice flavoured with ammonium chloride, which many visitors mistake for a cleaning product rather than a candy. Tunisia is so serious about its chili-based harissa. The jars of it often sit on the table like ketchup, ready to be stirred into everything from couscous to breakfast eggs. In some parts of Colombia, it's normal to dunk chunks of mild cheese into your hot chocolate, letting it melt into stretchy, sweet, savoury goo at the bottom of the cup. Oh gosh, no. reason this topic, paprika is so central to Hungarian cuisine that there are entire shops devoted just to different grades and flavours of it, from sweet and smoky to dangerously hot. And finally, Algeria considers couscous such a key part of its culture that it joined with several neighbouring countries to get couscous recognised by UNESCO as shared intangible heritage. And finally, my friends, we're going to finish with a mixture. These last 10 facts could be about anything. Country number 91 is Croatia. The modern necktie traces back to Croatian soldiers in the 17th century, whose knotted scarves impressed Parisians. The French word cravat comes from Croat. Jordan borders the Dead Sea, whose water is so salty and dense that you can sit and read a newspaper while floating without any swimming effort at all. Uzbekistan now. In medieval Samarkand, astronomer Ulugh Beg built a gigantic observatory with a stone sextant so large it was partly buried in a hill, letting him calculate the length of a year with remarkable accuracy. Because of Panama's twisty S-shaped isthmus, there are places where the sun rises over the Pacific Ocean and sets over the Atlantic, the opposite of what you would expect. Botswana's Okavango River doesn't reach the sea. It spills into the Kalahari Desert and spreads out into the Okavango Delta, a massive inland oasis that seasonally fills with elephants and hippos. Estonia runs much of its government digitally. Citizens can vote online in national elections and even check their medical records using a secure ID card. Oman's Dhofar region is home to frankincense trees, whose resin fueled a trade so important that ancient caravan routes from here were called the incense roads. 3 more now. Cyprus's capital, Nicosia, is the last remaining divided capital city in Europe, split by a UN-patrolled buffer zone between the island's Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot communities. Slovakia boasts one of the highest densities of castles and chateaux in Europe, ranging from cliff-top ruins to fairy tale mansions packed into a relatively small area. And the final country of tonight's video is Uruguay. Uruguay was one of the first countries to adopt the 8-hour workday nationwide back in 1915. And later became the first country to fully legalize cannabis production and sale on a national scale. And that is that. I apologise if your country wasn't mentioned, but we'll simply just have to do a follow-up video with